welcome back to my channel. I'm Jess Cannell, and we have been working our way through Maureen Callahan's book, Ask Not, the Kennedys and the Women They Destroyed. Rose Kennedy was a recent episode that we went through, and I found the chapter a little bit lackluster. I wanted more information about Rose Kennedy, particularly in the later years. We got a little glimpse at her early years of motherhood, but I wanted more information about what her continued posture was in life. So when I saw this magazine in our local antique store just right down the road, I grabbed it and wanted to open it up with you guys and just see what's here. I also was fascinated by this look at Ted and Joan. We've had a couple of chapters now on Joan Kennedy. And so here's Ted, which we will be doing a book about him when we go through Chappaquiddick. But here's Ted and Joan with Rose, and it says, you can hear the train that goes near my house. It says, an intimate visit with Rose Kennedy at 80. And it says, Rose Kennedy with Ted and Joan at a fundraising dinner. So this is July 17th, 1970, Life magazine. And I have not looked at it, except when I do buy these, I just go ahead and verify that the pages are there. But I don't know even what the slant of the article is going to be or anything, because I like to give you guys honest reactions. So this is not a feature magazine where every single thing in here is all about that. Often Life magazine is not. It was different topics. So this one starts on page 20. So we're going to get a lot of photography, I can already see. This first one shows her with her piano. And on the piano are old Joe in the back, Joe Jr., Jack, and Robert Kennedy there. And so there she is with the men that had passed on from her life. It says, elegant, vigorous, and as busy as ever, Rose Kennedy at 80. She keeps about her, as she always has in the big, airy old house in Hyannisport, her paintings, her flowers, her portraits of those giants, her menfolk. All these are touchstones to a past at once glorious and tragic, interwoven now with her nation's history. Many people might have tried to shut away all memories of those sad events, and they marvel that she has not. Instead, Rose Kennedy lives amid its tokens at Hyannis. Alone now, she thrives, it seems, on the bustle of a new generation of her remarkable clan. At 80, she sits pert and smiling at her polished concert grand and belts out Sweet Adeline, her father's campaign song, just as she did back in the 1900s when Honey Fitz was politicking his way into legend. By the time she was 15, she was already an accomplished christener of ships and shaker of hands. That's interesting. That gets into some of the things that we talked about, that she was an old political hand before she ever married Joe. While her men, husband Joe, sons Joe Jr., John, Robert, and Edward, were becoming rich and famous and powerful, and her daughters personages in their own right, Rose never allowed herself to remain a mere adornment. She was, said Jack, the very glue that held the Kennedys together. Old Joe said once, I don't think I know anyone who has more courage than my wife. In all the years we have been married, I have never heard her complain. Never. Not even once. It's interesting. That fits with what Jackie had said about her, that she only saw her cry twice, and that Rose was apologetic when she did. Here we're given a picture of Mrs. Kennedy. It says she was speaking in New York for research into mental retardation. It is her favorite charity. Well, wow, after reading the Rosemary episode, we know why. But that's interesting. So she took it on as a charitable intent. It says she lives alone now that her husband is dead. Hyannisport still abounds with playthings, like this kayak. So we see right here in front, I hope you can see that red kayak that she's sitting in. And her grandchildren who often come to play. So we have Caroline, daughter of the late president, and Courtney Kennedy, daughter of the late Senator Robert Kennedy. So these girls, Caroline and Courtney, each had lost their fathers, And they're having a silly moment with Rose there in the middle. That's sweet. We see her playing golf. It says, work on her iron shots on the Hyannisport lawn keeps Rose Kennedy's golf scores in the 80s. She says, anybody could be good with 40 years of practice. That's fun. Here we have Caroline and John F. Kennedy Jr. walking the beach with their grandmother. So here's John F. Kennedy Jr. and Caroline with their grandmother. And then right over here it says she still attends Mass every morning. So it has a picture of her with her veil. That every morning she went to Mass. So she was a devout Catholic. I made up my mind that I wouldn't allow it to conquer me, she says. So here she is again with Caroline. In the course of a long conversation, Mrs. Kennedy spoke of her family and her life. So we'll go ahead and read this together. God will not give us a cross heavier than we can bear. Either you survive or you succumb. If you survive, you profit by the experience. You understand the tragedies of other people's lives. You're more sympathetic and a broader person. It helps other members of the family if I am cheerful rather than if I were depressed or felt completely beaten. I made up my mind that I wouldn't allow it to conquer me. I think Jackie and Ethel were very wonderful. They have never really distressed us by an undue demonstration of grief or sorrow. They've always maintained poise and equanimity, which makes it easier for everyone. Teddy's wife, Joan, is so talented in music. She used to play the piano while we sang in the evenings in Hyannisport. Once, after we had lost Jack, we tried to sing some of the songs that he had liked. One of us got depressed, and that was, well, we all collapsed. So we closed the piano quickly and everybody went home. We discontinued our singing after that. Isn't that interesting? She highlights a lack of showy grief as something that was good for the whole family, and that when there was a chance for them all to feel sorrow together, they quickly shut the piano and shut those feelings down. That fits with our sense of the Kennedys. She continues, you just keep busy. Some people get bored and are boring. You keep interested in other people and in different activities. I've always had a mind that was probing and curious, and I've had the opportunity to use it. It seems there's so much to read you can't get through it. I want to take up speed reading. I hope I have benefited a good many people in the fight against mental retardation. So many parents have suffered this heartache, but we had the means to do something. I had so many normal, healthy children, 2 of them born before my daughter Rosemary. So you know it wasn't a health deficiency in me or Mr. Kennedy. That feels like a deflection. It almost seems preordained that Rosemary should have been given to us so that others might benefit. I mean, I'm glad she found a way to talk about it and acknowledge it, but it does make me sad that there's no admittance that the way that they resolved it really wasn't good for Rosemary or for the family. And perhaps she did. If you're familiar with her work with Charities for Mental Retardation as it was discussed at that time, maybe you're more aware. If so, please enlighten me. Did she come to a place where she was willing to share the truth about what had been done to Rosemary? Or was it something that was kind of uncovered over time through journalists and kind of whispers? She continues, I think to lose a husband when you're young is a very great tragedy, very hard on the girls, on the president's wife and Ethel. It is much more severe and heartbreaking, I think, than for a mother to lose a son. I had a wonderful life with my husband, a very happy and complete life on every level and from every angle. I have the grandchildren here more and more now. When Mr. Kennedy was ill, he had to have the house quiet. I have the young people separately by age so that the older ones won't be there taking attention away from the younger ones. That's good. I think that's actually really neat. I've seen different approaches to grandparent life. My husband was a pastor for a while, and we've moved in different cities and different circles. So I've had the opportunity to view up close different people and the way they interact with their grandchildren. I think this is an interesting thing to just pull out a few and be able to focus rather than having it be a chaotic time. I mean, I'll tell y'all, we have a lot of children, and our home can sometimes feel very chaotic when we have guests or when we add in just a couple of people. And I've had to start talking to the children about this, like, hey, we don't want to overwhelm somebody who's not used to that level of noise. Like, it might be a good idea, even though I know you're excited also to see the guest, it might be a good idea for you to take a game to the back room or things like that. But it's good that she thought of a way to have time with her grandchildren and yet not let it all overshadow one another. This is 1970, so this is the year after Chappaquiddick. Listen to how she talks about Ted. Teddy takes his responsibilities very seriously. I worry about him only a little. He is a solitary figure. There is no point denying that he is, and for the rest of his life he will be, alone. That is a truism. Once he lost Bobby, he lost a companion in strength and advice and responsibility. He spends a great deal of time worrying about his weight, usually while he's eating ice cream. There's a little dig. He doesn't exactly have the Lincoln-esque look which he'd like. That seems like such a dig. It's in fitting with everything we've heard about their focus on weight. People think that all I do is go to church because that's when the photographers know where to find me, and the rest of the day they don't see any sign of me. I'm going to change my image. I'm going to Europe again, and I'm going to be seen coming out of a nightclub, or I'm going to be in a bikini on the Riviera again. So don't be surprised. I'm tired of that other image. But better not make it too rollicking. Teddy might not like that. Teddy wants me to be taken seriously. That's funny. So that's what we get. I'm going to flip through just to wrap up our thoughts and make sure that there's nothing else happening. There's things about Vietnam in here. There's scientists spending time undersea. Oh, how cute. I'm showing this to you guys just because it's so timely. Look at these fashion clothes that tell a story. Just so we get a picture of this magazine. Well, I don't think we get anything else about Rose Kennedy, but that was an interesting look, wasn't it? To think about who she was and how she was, and the way that she was positioning herself, and even thinking about, I thought it was cute there at the end, the way that she said, everybody always thinks I'm going in and out of church, so maybe next thing you'll see is me coming out of a club or me in a bikini. That's quite humorous. It's poking fun at herself more than I would have anticipated her doing. I'll say that. I just noticed this, and I'm just going to do it because I know YouTube gives us all sorts of wonderful features as content creators, and one of the things that they do is they tell me the channels and the videos that you guys are watching. So I know a lot of you are royal fans, and so I'm just going to share this because it says A Commoner's Guide to Conversation with Charles and Anne, and we get these photos of now King Charles with Princess Anne. Here we have the Queen smiling on right here. Right here we have Prince Charles in regalia of some kind here, making kind of a silly face. It lists out all of his titles. That's a House of Lords robe that he was in. It says, a mini bow is sufficient. It's Your Royal Highness, never love or dearie. And then it shows Prince Charles listening carefully with different world guests that he entertained or visited with. Oh, there are more pictures too. Speculation about could Charles actually marry a commoner? So it has him talking to different women there. It has him acting on the stage from Hamlet to Sir Cumberbund. Look at him. This is darling. I've heard that he was an enjoyable actor, but look at his position there on the stage. How fun to see him kind of letting loose in that way. I love these old magazines, you guys. Is he, I guess he's almost like not skiing. He's sitting. That's fun. Well, I love that you guys have been enjoying these Life magazine looks as well. I think it's fun. Particularly it's fun because sometimes even as I'm translating the information, some of you have corrected me about cultural things that were happening at the time that I misread because I'm not thinking like someone from 1958 or 1963. And so you guys have been able to give me that. I think also sometimes authors who are writing in 2023 or 2024 aren't always viewing a situation through that cultural lens. So I think it's so valuable to be able to go back to the actual time and see how they spoke, how they wrote, what kind of questions they were asking, or what they were interested in. I loved seeing the way that Rose portrayed herself in this, and I loved looking at this magazine with you guys. I hope you have a great day. Let me know if you liked this. I hope I earned your like and subscription from this video, and I hope you'll join me for future videos. Have a great day.